We're all set? All right. As always, we speak on the Pasha of the week. You've been learning the Pasha of the week is Pasha's Vayeyroh. Very, very special Pasha in that this Pasha speaks completely about Avraham. And it actually brings out Avraham's ultimate, you know what ultimate means? The highest levels that Avraham had reached. In the previous Pasha, we also started with Avraham. The whole Pasha was also Avraham. This was like the beginning of Avraham's Avodah. This is the first when Hashem told him to leave his father's house to start a new path in life. And Vayeyroh is speaking about the ultimate accomplishments, the ultimate heights that Rome has reached. At the end of Pashas Lech Lecha, Avraham received the mitzvah of Milah, which is really the first and only mitzvah that our forefathers received from Hashem before Matan Torah. They received many directives, like Lech Lecha is also Hashem told them to go. But this is a temporary thing, a mitzvah for all generations, for all times. This is only in Torah. And there's only one exception to that, is this mitzvah Milah that Avraham received from Hashem to start doing Milah, he and his children and children's children forever. So that too is a tremendous accomplishment, tremendous height that Avraham has reached, as we discussed last week. And this week, this proceeds further. We will mention several things in the Pasha and try and discuss them and try to discuss them in light of what we can draw from them. The first is the very beginning of the Pasha, where the Torah tells us that Avraham was sitting in front of his tent, although it was extremely hot. And Rashi explains, what does this mean? Why was he sitting in front of his tent? So Rashi explains, because Avraham's great focused occupation was to invite guests to his home. As you all learned, but Hashem made it to be a very hot day, so there will be no wayfarers. And the reason Hashem did that is because Avraham was recuperating from his Milah. Hashem wanted to give him a little rest, but Avraham wouldn't take it. So he sat outside of his tent. So then Hashem sent him these malachim in the form of human beings. And Avraham grabbed them and he served them like human beings. It appears that at first Avraham actually mistook them for human beings, but he soon found out that they were very special, because one of them got up and he said, Sarah is going to have a son next year. That's not an Arab giving that kind of prophecy. Right?
Do you know they were malachim now?
Afterwards he realized they were malachim. When he started predicting all kind of things. There are a couple of points I want to stop focusing in this little parsha. First, I want to discuss this hosting of guests that Avram was so heavily occupied with. Clearly, it represented Avram's natural quality that Avram was a Ish HaChesed. He was a kind person, and he showed God's presence in the world through kindness. This kindness of Avram was not merely satisfying his natural inclination, make him feel good that he is doing a kindness. This kindness by Avram was what we call avodas Hashem. He was serving God for this kindness. What is the relationship? Where is this a service of God? The later on we'll learn in the Torah and the Halacha that there is a directive in the Torah that hidovek b'midoifsov, that a Yid is supposed to follow and emulate, copy Hashem. And all qualities that Hashem shows, we are supposed to emulate, copy. Hashem shows kindness, so we have to show kindness. For instance, in today's Parsha, Rashi says that Hashem came to visit Avram because he was sick. It's called Bikur Cholim, visiting the sick. From this we learn that we are supposed to be visiting the sick. What is the relationship? Hashem is Hashem and we are us. So if we are emulating Hashem, so we are just copycats. It is not a real thing. The explanation to that is that in fact, since that this world is Hashem's creation, therefore, everything in the world reflects the godly quality. Starting from, say, the beauty of the world, the brightness, the variety, the multiple different species that there are. You look at a flower, how many different flowers are there? And how beautifully they expand and they decorate the world. The fruits, how luscious and how rich are the fruits that Hashem created. All that is representative of Hashem. Why is the world so grand? Because its creator has represented himself in the creation. Even though the creation is very distant from the creator, distant, I don't mean Hashem, far away. Hashem creates the world all the time. But it's very difficult. It's very difficult to see godliness in the world. Ultimately, in the near future, when Mashiach will come, everybody will recognize that everything in the world is godly. But until such time, we still can get blinded and see the world differently. But we have to understand that everything in the world is representative, everything good in the world is representative of God's goodness. This is the source, this is the reason that there is goodness. And therefore when Avram was performing acts of kindness, he was representing God's kindness. This is why Avram was kind, because he was imbued, he was affected through and through with godly qualities, and it expressed itself by him in the kindness. You understand that? So Avram's kindness represented God's kindness. Avram did not take, so to speak, personal credit for his kindness. As you learned in Rashi, and this is what we're going to discuss, and Avram said, this kindness, this is the godly spirit that created kindness in the world, that created justice in the world, that created...
Can we say that about ourselves? Can we say that about ourselves, that when we're kind, that it's just the godly spirit?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody have a microphone? They can hear it. Adaptation. It doesn't turn off immediately, just... It takes time. You turn it off, you can stop it. Absolutely. Everything that we have, every good quality that we have, comes from our soul, which is a godly spirit. Life itself is a godly quality. It's not a physical quality, not a worldly quality. We all recognize and believe, and beyond belief we recognize that even though a human being lives 120 years, but his soul continues to live indefinitely. Why? Because it's godly. It's switched off, right? But it's going to stop soon. It doesn't stop automatically. It stops a minute later. Huh? Okay, we'll see. We'll see in a minute. Oh. Thank you. This is true. You're asking about us. We have to understand. This is true in every individual person. Not to the extent and purity of Avraham, but every person. When we do an act of kindness, justice, when being truthful, we're not allowed to lie. We're supposed to tell the truth. Why? Because it's God's world. And God is true. And we have a godly spirit, a godly neshama. And when we say a lie, we feel uncomfortable. Normally, a healthy human being feels uncomfortable when he is lying. Right? Some people can't even lie because you see right away that they're lying. You can't even hide it. They don't have to be very great people. But because truth is a godly quality which is what is represented in the world. Even though the world allows for lies. It's possible to lie. The reason it's possible to lie is because the world hides, nobody knows what you're thinking. So they look at your eyes and you don't show anything, so you don't see it. So it's possible to lie. This is the big thing that we have in our world, in our life. That for us to act according to the truth of God, according appropriately and kindly and well and goodness, for us this is already a challenge. It's not a natural thing. It's not a simple thing. Because it's possible to do otherwise. This is called Bechira. We have the choice. Not Chas v'Sholom, we have a choice to be with or without God. But we have to choose. When every time that we act correctly, we have overcome a temptation to act differently. And when we act differently, we are in fact not recognizing or denying for the moment the godly presence. We're saying, I can lie. We are kind of taking the world away from God. Saying, well, the world is a world, God is God. God is very truthful and kind and good, but the world is a separate entity. But we don't believe that. Our job is to reconnect and to show how God shows himself and can be recognized in the world itself. This is our job. This is the destiny of the Jewish people. So this is the primary understanding of Avram's kindness. It was true, he was naturally kind, but it was not just an expression of his nature. It was avodas Hashem. He was showing godliness through his act of kindness. Despite the fact that Avram was very kind, and as we see from this parsha, you already learned that Avram stood and pleaded with Hashem, tried to protect Sodom. Avram didn't agree in any which way with the way that Sodom was conducting affairs. The political system in Sodom did not agree with Avram at all. But Avram yet, because of his kindness, he wanted to protect Sodom. In the previous Parsha, Parshas Lech Lecha, you learned that when Hashem told Avram that he's going to have a son from Sarah, Avram said, I don't deserve such a great gift. I'll be satisfied if Yishmael will survive, or Yishmael will go in the right path. If you remember, Lu Yishmael Yichel Lefanech. Yishmael and Yitzchak are worlds apart. But Avram saw everything kindly. This was Avram's way. And he was able to defend his daimim. He was able to see goodness in Yishmael. And yet the Gemara says that when Avram conducted his guest house business, he used it to teach people, to teach the Arabs about God. This was Avram's primary occupation. To go around and teach the world about God. Avram suffered immensely for it. He was thrown into fire. You know the story, because he broke the idols. Avram stood up single-handedly fighting against the mighty kings, because he took it upon himself to break through this stupidity and this falseness and to show God's presence in the world. And this was his primary occupation. That Avram made this guest house, and he enriched it and made it very comfortable with an orchard and all that. But primarily he was out to make Hashem's name known in the world. And we have to understand that even though many gyrations, many generations, many different cycles of human development went since Abraham, And like it says, Abram and Sarah, they brought many people to recognize God. But these people later on got lost back into the world. It didn't last like Abram's nation, like Yitzhak and Yankov. This was the only line that stayed forever. The others all fell back. But the falling back did not fall back to the extent that there was no trace left. Everything that they did remained affected. It affected the whole world. So that perhaps 1,000 years later, it will be easier to talk about God just because Abraham had already implanted these ideas. The actual thing changed, but deep down, it had its eternal effect. So in this guest house, the Gemara tells us that Abraham would serve the guest food. This was in the middle of a desert. There were no supermarkets around. It was worse than under communism. There was no food around at all. It was in the middle of no place. And Abraham served him food and gave him a comfortable place to relax under a tree, under shade. And then after they finished, Abraham said to them, I want you to understand that there is a God who creates the world. And He is the one who created this food that you ate. And you should thank Him for creating this food. And some of them were able to be convinced under the circumstances that Abraham explained to them, and they accepted it. Some of them refused. They only know world. Like Rashi says, that these are Arabs who worshipped, who would bow to dust of their feet. Idol worship is such a perverted concept that where it leads we can't figure out. You can bow to the dust of your feet and it makes sense. Even today, there's still, even today in the world, there's residue of such stupidities. You go to India, and they have cows that are called holy cows. The cow by them is an idol. It's unbelievable. The cows walk right through the urban centers. And when the cow walks, everything stops. God is walking. It's not a joke. It's mind-boggling.
It's not a joke.
Huh?
It's not a joke.
Mind-boggling. Like the Egyptians, Rashi said, the Egyptians used to worship the sheep. That's why Eden, when we made a Korban Pesach, was from a sheep, to show the Egyptians that we shecht, we kill their idol. Same thing today, 3,000-4,000 years later, it's still going on. So Avram was debating with these Arabs who bowed to the dust of their feet. And if they refused finally to recognize God, Avram said to them, okay, if you refuse to recognize that this food was created by God, then it's my food. For me, my food, you have to pay. And he gave him a list, all the food, all the different dishes they ate. Put a price next to it, give him a bottom line, says, okay, pay up. And the prices were pretty hefty prices. And the guy looks at them, wow, $2 for a glass of water. He says, find water elsewhere. There's no water around. So then they reneged, they changed their mind, and they agreed to thank God. So this was one way that Abraham coerced. Not coerced means be forced for them to recognize and to agree just to thank God even verbally, giving lip service. And they said, thank God, and Abraham let him go. So now the question is, okay, so they give lip service. What did Abraham accomplish? They didn't accept it. They didn't agree with it. They didn't believe in it. So they said with their mouth, this which Abraham told them to say. Is that what Abraham wanted them to say with their mouth? He wanted them to get it personally, get personally involved and recognize this. Of course he wanted them to have a personal recognition. So this question, the explanation to this question, something similar to it we discussed many times here. There's a Sikha from Rebbe that the Rebbe asks specifically this question. And he explains the inyonim that we explained, similar to that in every person there's a soul. And the soul of the person, like we said before, knows the truth.
Even Goyim?
Even Goyim.
What kind of soul?
Okay. I'll come back to this. But even Goyim also have a soul. They also have an intellect, they also have a soul. Not the same at all like we do, but they also have it. And the recognition of that soul is from the fact that Goyim are not allowed al pidin Torah to worship idols. They don't have to worship God, they don't have to pray. But they're not allowed to worship idols. If they have no capacity to understand, to recognize the truth, so why not? God does not give a command for someone who has no means of understanding, of recognizing the command. That means that they too have the ability to recognize that the world has a boss, has one creator. Whether you should worship him or not worship him, thank him or not, that's something else for me. But to recognize that there is one creator in the world, not multiple and not idols, that is a primary human capacity, no matter who the human being is. Except what happens? People get involved in very lowly worldly affairs, and they get so engrossed and so affected by the coarseness of their worldly involvement that they lose sense of what their own soul tells them. They're not in contact with their soul. This is called imprisonment of the soul. That's like a prisoner is a full-fledged human being, but he can't act as such. The prison walls don't let him. He has to act within the prison walls. The same thing. The soul can also be imprisoned within the physical body and recognize and act only according to the directives and the interests of the body, and not to shine through and to complain and say, this is what I think. There's an interesting phenomenon that occurred. There was a certain period of time in the 80s, 1980s, 1990s, there were many hijackings, airplane hijackings. I don't know if any one of you would remember that, actually not. People, would hijack an airplane in the middle of mid-flight. And they would take the airplane to some island and demand ransom and demand all kinds of different things. All kinds of different reasons for that. And during those years, the people who were the victims of this hijacking, the passengers in the planes, had all kinds of different reactions to these experiences. It's a very traumatic experience, you can imagine. And what was said then, that these people were sitting in this plane, and now they're under the control of these criminals, of these terrorists. And they were sitting in the plane, they're not allowed to move without permission. You need to go to the bathroom, you have to lift your hand. May I? You need a glass of water, you're asking for a favor, can I have a glass of water? Otherwise, you sit in your seat, and the minute you move, not according to their rules, you know, your life is at stake. They were very ruthless and very harsh people. So after a while, being under that control, the people in the airplane kind of accepted these terrorists as their victims. And they got accustomed to them and acclimated. They got accustomed to this mentality. And after a while, if you asked him, can I go to the bathroom? And they would say yes. He said, oh, what a nice guy. Look at this. Can I have a glass of water? Here. Oh, look at these people. They're really good people. Can you imagine? This is reality. This is called imprisonment of the soul, imprisonment of the intellect. You lose sense of who you are. And you're involved because your life is at stake. And you know you can't move other than by rule of these people. So you got so accustomed that your mind doesn't even think. The reality, this becomes a reality.
It's just normal for them.
Yeah, this becomes your reality. And you can't think for yourself, wait, who are these people? What are they, you know, you don't allow yourself to think that. This is called imprisonment of the intellect. And there is imprisonment of the soul, where people become preoccupied and imbued, so to speak, with their worldly affairs and worldly effects, and all kinds of pleasures, interest, even Titus. He wants this steak, he wants this piece of bread, whatever it is. He becomes so infatuated, so engrossed, so drawn to it, that he forgets who he is. He forgets that he's a human being. People stand, I always give this example, people stand in the subway, and they stand on the subway platform, and the train comes, and the doors open. What should a human being do at that time?
Market forces people to get outside.
Stand aside, let people come out, and go in. Right? What happens, in fact, if you observe what's happening? Clash. Right? People go on against the other. This one has to go out, this one has to go out. You forget that you're a human being. I have to get into that train. Forget about who I am. I have to get in there. This is losing your human sense. So you lose your human sense only superficially, but you really, in deep down, you have it. You are a human being.
What superficially?
Externally.
Okay.
On the surface. Mm-hmm. But deep down, you are a human being. And it is the effort that we have to exert. We don't have to create the soul. The soul is there. It's a very wholesome and beautiful and rich soul. The effort that we have to exert is to break the prison doors and allow the soul to surface. And this is what happens. When Avram presents them with this bill, and it kind of hits them hard, they lose their coarseness, they lose their gaiva, they lose their arrogance. Arrogance means gava. And then they become human beings. Not 100%, not to a great, but they really see, this is stupid. It opens up a little bit. When you shake a person up, it opens him up a little bit. It refines him. This principle is essentially what we are told all the time, that we have to apply the principle of Kabbalah's oil. Kabbalah's oil means to accept the yoke, to recognize there is a boss, to recognize I have to do it whether I like it or not. I have to do this whether I like it or not. So what happens? But I still don't like it. By this method, you break the prison doors. You subdue the nefesh, the Yisrael, you subdue the nefesh of you become a human being.
By not liking it and doing it?
No, by doing it, right, even though against your will.
Okay.
Right, that's how it breaks this coarseness. And you begin to surface, to recognize there are things to be done that are right to be done, even though I don't recognize them. But they're really right. And then your human qualities begin to surface. This is an important principle that we should always remember. Sometimes we feel almost like, I'm forcing myself. Don't worry about it. This is not forcing yourself. This is breaking out of the prison. And ultimately, by forcing yourself, you will, after a while, recognize that you become much more of a human being. Much more of a human being. You begin to relate to the things that you are doing. Not because you made yourself to think about it, not because of mind controlling, chas v'sholom, anything like that, but because you really recognize its value. If you hold back and you say, I was told not to run in the subway against the throngs, stand on the side. After a while, it makes sense. And you really, it makes sense right away, but after a while you relate to it, you become a human being. When you're told that before you eat, you have to wash your hands. Before you eat, you have to sit down. You have to make a bracha. You have to take a piece and eat like a mensch, and eat in a respectable manner. Not stuff yourself with both hands on both cheeks. So at first you have to restrain yourself, but afterwards you say, hey, that's right. And before you eat, you have to recognize that this is Hashem's food. And you make a bracha. It's also right. So these restraining methods are not just to restrain, have you do the right thing, but it is to restrain and allow your human and holy qualities to surface. It's an extremely meaningful and effective method. In the annals of Lubavitch, annals in the history of Lubavitch, there's a very well-known episode, well-known story that the Frierdiker Rebbe writes about that occurred in Lubavitch itself. Lubavitch in Russia. In Lubavitch, when the Rebbe started the yeshiva, the Rebbe Rashab started the yeshiva, so the students that were accepted in the yeshiva were very strictly filtered. It wasn't that anybody came and was accepted. They were selected very, very strictly. Selected with an eye to see whether they are capable of learning Chassidus and getting the principles that the Rebbe is teaching. And they were, generally speaking, they were students with good heads and dedicated students, absolutely dedicated. The learning level was on a high, very high level. One time, a new student was accepted, came in. This student came from a different yeshiva. He was a very, grown-up man, 18, 19, 20, I don't know exactly what age. And he came in. It was obvious that he knew of who he is. He came with the entire presentation. I'm a London, he was also physically very presentable, very handsome and tall. And he really knew his worth. He knew what he stood for. And the Rebbe, the Friedrich Rebbe, who was the Menahel, he was like the principal. He always consulted with his father, who was the Rebbe at the time. And the Rebbe told him, and he was afraid to accept the student. He said, Balgaiva. He doesn't belong in Lubavitch. The Rebbe said to him, accept him, we will have a lot of nachas from him. He'll work out. Accepted the student. And came the time for Pesach. The preparations for Pesach, the yeshiva had its own kitchen. And the Bochrim were all involved in preparing for Pesach. To kasher the kitchen, wash everything, scrape everything. You can imagine, you know what preparing for Pesach is. So the father Rebbe, who was the Rebbe at the time, the Friedrich Rebbe's father, told him, the Friedrich Rebbe was in charge of allocating jobs to all the students. So the Rebbe told his son that in the preparation for Pesach, he should assign this student to do all the heavy work. There are all kinds of different work that you do. All the heavy work that has to be done to scrape the tables and to wash everything down, all that you should give to this student. This student was always, well taken care of. He was a great scholar. All of a sudden he's standing there and scraping tables. And he did everything he was told. That was the thing that the Rebbe detected. He will follow what he's told. He did everything he was told. He sweated over it. He worked very, very hard. And whatever he was told to do, he did. Didn't protest. And what was he told to do? Scrape the tables, wash the dishes, kasher the dishes, wash the floor, whatever it is. He did it all. This great scholar.
Penny drop.
The Pesach night by the Seder night, the Rebbe who was the Rebbe at the time, came to sit with the Bochrim. Huh? The Rebbe Rashab came in to sit with the Bochrim. And he looked around, and he said to the son, to the Friedrich Rebbe, he said, look at that Bochrim. He's a changed man. The coarseness has disappeared, and a human face has surfaced. And ultimately, we know who this Bocher was. He became one of the great Rabbonim, Lubavitcher Rabbonim, very Chassidish in Yoma, very Chassidish read with a huge dynasty, a rich dynasty. So we have to know that when we break the Yetzer Hara, you break the Nefesh Abamis, it's not just for the sake of breaking it. It's for the sake of allowing the Neshama to surface. This is how we become human beings. There are many other things in the Parsha, but we will just fast forward and go to the end of the Parsha. The end of the Parsha, of course, is the Parsha Ho'akedah. Everybody knows what the Akedah is? Mm-hmm. The Akedah. Akedah is when Avraham was told to take Yitzchak and put him on the Mizbeach, on the altar, shecht him, and offer him as an offering, as a korban oila. Oila means the whole thing gets just burned out to ashes. Which is, as I said, this is the epitome. This is what's known as the 10th Nisoyin of Avraham. The 10th. Avraham went through 10 Nisoyins. This is the most difficult, obviously, the most extreme, and the highest level of Avraham's avodah. And this is known, this whole episode, this is called Mesiras Nefesh. Mesiras Nefesh means to give up one's soul, or self-sacrifice. What is the meaning of Mesiras Nefesh? What is the significance of Mesiras Nefesh? Hashem wants us to be here in this world. He wants us to be well and healthy and build the world and do kindness and goodness like we said before. What's the meaning of Mesiras Nefesh? We know from the Akedah that Hashem didn't want Avram to shecht Yitzchak. Yitzchak was supposed to live till 180 and have a son Yankiv and then build the Jewish nation. But the Nisoyin consisted in Mesiras Nefesh. Avram actually tied Yitzchak up, put him on the altar, and he took the knife in his hand. What does it mean? What's the significance of this? So this clearly is one of the, that's why it's called the big Nisoyin. It's one of the most difficult things. But we know that throughout the ages, for all these thousands of years, all the age, throughout the ages, throughout human history, Jewish history, which is a long history since Avraham, like 3,000 years. And Mesiras Nefesh was one of the waste of life for Jewish people, unfortunately. And we got it from our father Abraham to be able to do this. And the Jewish people suffered with Mesiras Nefesh throughout the ages. Even on Yom Kippur, we read the Asor Arug, the 10 Asor Arugi Malchus, the 10 scholars, the 10 Tanoim that were killed by the Roman Emperor. I don't know if you became aware of this. Rabbi Akiva was killed. Rabbi Akiva was killed in cold blood. Rabbi Shmuel and Gamliel, Rabbi Shimon and Gamliel, 10 of the greatest of our Tanoim were killed in cold blood. Not in war, just in cold blood. With torturous ways. What is this all about? And the Medrash says that when Hashem said to Abraham to take Yitzchak, it says, we say it every day in Davening, Kach no es bincha. What does no mean? Huh? Please. Hashem is pleading with Abraham, please take Yitzchak. So the Medrash says, what's please? Take him. So they explained that Hashem said to Abraham, you went through 9 very big nisyonos in your life. Please do this one. Because if you fail in this one, then all the others will be cancelled out. And not the real, but will lose their value. It shouldn't be said that the early ones had no mamash, had no real value. What does that mean? Abraham listened to Hashem and went through all kinds of nisyonos. So again, this is the Rebbe's explanation. We know historically that this Mesiras Nefesh per se, Mesiras Nefesh, giving up one's life, is something that lahavdil existed by Goyim also. Did you ever hear of the concept of a duel? A duel?
Fencing. What's it with the gun?
A duel? You know that duels went on in modern society, in high society, up until a couple of 100 years ago. You know what it is? This guy insulted this guy, and he had to stand up for his honor. So he said, we called him to a duel. How can I live with this insult? Either I kill him or he kills me. And this was going on. This was considered honorable. Right? Mesiras Nefesh. That's Mesiras Nefesh. That's animalistic thought. If for some reason a person's mind directs him to do this Mesiras Nefesh, to give up his life, because, like I said, if he insulted me and I can't swallow it, I have to stand up for my honor, and my life without honor is worthless. I can't live like this. You know, the whole social pressure. And he goes for it. That's not Mesiras Nefesh. That's simply saying, that's what's called Hefkin. What Hefkin? He throws his life to the dogs. Mesiras Nefesh is when one stands for something. It's not giving up his life. It's worthless. Like we said before, everything that a Yid does, he's representing Hashem. And his representation of Hashem means that he is showing, he's saying that this world is through and through godly. And because it's godly, therefore you must not steal, you must not rob, you must not lie, you must not do all kinds of different devious things. Because it's God's world. And if it comes to it, that the world stands against Hashem, even to the extent where it means that you have to give your life up. So you say, okay, with my life is all my life is a godly presence. This is my life. My life stands. What is my life for? To show godliness in the world. This is my life. This is what the Jewish life is. This is what the Jewish destiny is. And this is what took place at this Akedah. Avram had a lifetime of teaching the world about God. This was, as we said before, this was his dedication since very early in his life. The age of 40, the age of 48, very early in his life. Before he came to Eretz Canaan, way before. So up until this time, it could be said that Abraham is following through and living this life because philosophically he believed in it. It made sense to him. This is what he understood. This was like somebody standing up for his philosophy, for his own philosophy. Just like we said before, Avram did kindness. How do you know that he did kindness because this is a godly presence? Maybe he did kindness because he was a kind person. He liked kindness. He liked to see people happy. When do you see? When was it proven beyond question that Avram did all of this because of the godly presence, because he recognized, he knew only the truth, the godly truth, not because of any kind of personal calculation, personal philosophies. This was at the Akedah.
How?
At the Akedah, there was nobody present. It was just he and Yitzchak. Even Yishmael and Eliezer were not there. The two Neorim, the two lads, as the Akedah says, that came with him. And Rashi said that Yishmael and Eliezer, they also stood behind. Nobody was there. Avraham and Yitzchak and God. And he's doing what God told him to do. He's not making any proclamations. It's not a public affair. God said that He wants me to do this, and this is what He does. What does that mean? That Abraham had complete cognizance of only one truth. This permeation with this one truth, this is what gave birth to the Jewish people. This is what ultimately brought about that we receive the Torah from Hashem. And we have Hashem's Torah and we live in our world, in this physical world, Not with the world, but with Hashem. Our laws are based on Hashem's teaching, not on worldly, on the civil calculations. Like it says in the Megillah, Megillah's Esther, Megillah that we read on Purim, that one of the things that Haman said to Ahasuerus when he wanted to destroy the Jewish people, he says, you have a people over here that spread all over in your kingdom, and their laws are different than the laws of all other nations. Shoinis Bikolom, they have different laws. So, what's wrong with having different laws? The argument that he was presenting to Ahasuerus is there are all kinds of nations, and all nations have different laws. But all their laws are based on some kind of a worldly justification, a worldly principle. Their laws are different. They're not based on world. They deny the world. Their laws are based on the godly presence, on the God honor. There are laws in every country. The Torah says that the Goyim have to make laws. But these laws are based on what? On social vibes, on social principles. And the laws change according to the social changes. Not Jewish laws. The Torah is forever, doesn't change. Cannot change. God doesn't change. And you can stand on your head, the Torah cannot change. It's a godly law. This is the principle of Mesiras Nefesh. Chas v'sholom, that God should want anyone to die. God wants to live. But to live means to live a godly life. That's what a Jewish life is. To recognize a godly presence in my life. Without that, it's impossible to live. It's no life.
So did this help us? Did this act help us get our neshamas?
You have a neshama already.
No, I mean, like, is that how we got our neshamas through that act?
Right. This principle of Mesiras Nefesh, the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, which many of you probably have already learned, that every Yid is capable of going with Mesiras Nefesh. This we inherited from Abraham. And every Yid is capable of going with Mesiras Nefesh. As a matter of fact, historically, it was proven, it should never be tested again, God forbid, that the Yidden gave up everything, and they would not reject and accept any other truth but they got the truth from the Torah. No matter what. No matter what their state was, their status of life was. So the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya that this capability of Mesiras Nefesh is the greatest source of strength for a Yidden, for us, to fulfill all the mitzvahs in the Torah. All the mitzvahs that we have to do. If you find it difficult to overcome a certain temptation, find it difficult to overcome a certain laziness, you want to do this, I have to do this. No matter what, if we reflect that at this very moment when I'm fighting with my Yetzer Hara, this very moment, my Yetzer Hara presents a big challenge to me. I want to do this, but I have to do this. Challenge. I'm fighting. At this very moment, if, Chas v'sholom, I were confronted with the question, deny God or else you get killed, what would my choice be? What would my choice be? I have no other choice.
Yeah.
So this is a great resource, a great sense of strength, that It gives a person the ability to overcome every challenge and to do Avodas Hashem under all circumstances. Because how does this compare to Mesiras Nefesh? This is what Avraham Avinu had bestowed, bequeathed to us. And this is what a Yid is. No matter what you see, Eden can also make mistakes and can also have to lie and fight or whatever it is. This is a Yid, deep down he's a Yid who is, at this very moment when he's doing all the wrong things, is ready to be Mesiras Nefesh. Except for at this moment he doesn't realize that to lie is contrary to God's presence. The Rebbe says that if he would recognize that when he's saying a lie, he's rejecting God at this moment, he will never be able to do it. Doesn't think of it. Like we said before, he's not conscious of what his real thoughts are. So with this great strength that we have from Avraham Avinu, our father, he is literally our father. He is the father of all Jews, for all generations Jews, and all those who have come into the Jewish fold. Gerim is also the same thing. He is the father of all Gerim and everything. And he gives us all the strength, and with this strength we will each bring out the best in ourselves. We will each reach in to our soul and open up our own intellect and recognize our own potential for understanding Torah, understanding godliness, and accomplish all our tasks that we have to accomplish. And all together we will, in Mitzvah Hashem, bring Mashiach.
Amen.